In today's LEGO City update, I'll be building the first module to transition the LEGO City onto the upper platform, and for that I'll firstly extend the brick wall towards the corner. The entire brick wall is built in light bluish grey. I only vary the pieces in order to get a bit of structure into the brickwork. As soon as the wall reaches the corner, it would now be a bit too boring to extend it along the entire module, and therefore, as you can see right now, I'm beginning to use dark bluish grey slopes for a really complicated building technique for the rock face. I'll show you that, of course, in just a second. Before that, we have to fix this quite annoying gap between the two modules, and all I did for that is simply place one 1x2 plate connecting the two modules. Now, when it came to the first experiment of the rock face, I tried to use all sort of different joint elements, hinges and so on, but unfortunately the gaps between these two different pieces of the rockwork were way too big. Therefore I had to remove all the built-in dark bluish grey slopes, and now this was the new building technique I developed. I added even more hinges in order to now simply close the gaps and place this module of the rock face directly in front of the brick wall. And now the entire rock face is connected by more hinges in order to get different angles and make the rock face look much more interesting. Of course, I somehow had to connect the entire thing with the rest of the module, and therefore I used this 1x4 brick modified, connected one of the rock face modules with the green plates beneath them, and then connected the entire thing via the hinges I built in. And as you can see in the speed build already, this one brick modified I connected the entire rock face with the rest of the module with is more than stable enough to hold the entire thing. What I now did in order to add even more stability is I turned the studs by 90 degrees, so I had them face up, and then I was able to connect the entire thing with the rest of the wall. But for now I had the usual problem. This giant rock structure looked extremely out of place, and therefore I had to develop a solution to connect the entire thing visually. What I now came up with is I used these special bricks in order to connect Lego pieces at an angle with the studs beneath them, and now I built different rocks at the bottom of this rock face, which then resulted in the entire thing looking much more natural. I also added a few normally placed slopes along the bottom. The main reason for that is I wanted to fill all the different small gaps I had remaining between the bigger rock pieces. However, this definitely wasn't enough, and therefore I had to come up with another solution and now try to use these weird pieces, which are quite expensive, and therefore today's video is sponsored by NordVPN. Let's imagine you wanted to download Bricklink Studio, a program to design 3D Lego models, and now you click on a website where it seems that you can download this specific program. All sorts of weird download buttons pop up that aren't even real, but misleading ads placed on that site in order to redirect you onto their sites. NordVPN's threat protection now saves you from those misleading, intrusive, and also possibly dangerous ads. If you too want to benefit of not only NordVPN's threat protection, but also all their service in 59 different countries all around the world, granting you access to otherwise geo-blocked content, make sure to use my link in the video description for a huge discount, as well as 4 months free on a 2-year plan. It's totally risk-free because of the 30-day money-back guarantee. Now back to those weird pieces I've just shown you. They are called flex tubes, and well, as the name might suggest, you can bend and shape them as you wish, and now it gets even better. Here you can see me place a 1x1 round brick onto one of those flex tubes, which means I can now cover an entire flex tube with all those 1x1 round bricks and shape the entire thing, and now have a tree trunk I can perfectly use to fill all those small gaps I have in between the slopes I placed on the module. And now this is probably even better. The limb elements too have a small gap in the middle of them, which is once again designed to place a flex tube or all sorts of bars actually through this small hole, which means I can now connect the leaves as well with the flex tube and now bend the entire tree, which looks so much more interesting than simply having a straight, normal, boring tree. The process of placing these limb elements onto the tree trunk is a bit annoying. As you can see, leaves are falling off and other weird stuff's happening, but as soon as all that is done, it is quite stable. As you can see, I can bend the entire tree and nothing is happening because of that tube connecting everything with each other. Now I'm of course placing several different trees along the bottom of the rock face, which immediately makes it look so much more interesting than before, and this bent shape of the tree is something I'll definitely make use of in future updates as well. I'll of course not only place trees along the rock face, but also use vegetation to cover the entire ground. In this case, I wanted to try something new and was using these bamboo leaves. On the rock face itself, I also had some minor gaps remaining and tried to cover them up as well. And also, look at this is so satisfying. I attached round bricks to these bamboo leaves and now placed them into the small gap I had remaining, which was in fact the only solution to cover that hole up that was remaining. And now one last thing I did, I remodeled the transition from the tiling onto this more natural looking section because I wasn't quite satisfied with the straight line I had earlier. And also I was already preparing something else regarding the harbor, which I'll now show you live in the Lego City. So first of all, when it comes to the area I've just extended, I want to use that part to now add stairs down towards the harbor area. As you know, the entire harbor will be extended towards the rock face. And then actually right here, I want to model the rock face into the harbor itself. So I want to get rid of the dock at some point because, well, it gets repetitive. If we have 5 more modules of the harbor, at some point it gets annoying to build and simply boring. And then over here where we've just started the rock face, I want to build that down towards the harbor and then build a transition and have the rocks disappear in the water. When it comes to the top of the rock face, I have these empty studs remaining, and depending on how long you've watched the channel, you might know that I hate empty studs, and therefore I want to use this part to create a transition onto the upper platform and also have some of the rock work on here. But that's for future updates. At the end of the rock face we've built today, I now have this perfect clean cut, which is actually the only solution that would work in order to now connect the next module as well, because I want to continue this quite complicated building technique of the rock face. By the way, I won't use this building technique in the back where my big mountain is, but I think that might be obvious if you think about the time it consumes to build everything on the side. Now, if we take a few steps back, I haven't shown you how the entire thing integrates into the landscape. I'm quite satisfied with it, especially considering the fact that while building, I was quite worried that the entire area would look a bit, well, out of place, that the rock didn't really fit into this corner. Now I can definitely say that I'm satisfied with the result. Next video, I'd like to continue on the upper platform. I'm still waiting for a few pick-a-brick orders, which for some weird reason, once again, don't want to arrive. Don't know what's going on at the Lego headquarters, but for some reason they're taking like 4 weeks once again to send me my orders. Well, still I'm hoping that at least some of my orders start arriving within the next week, because I'm really running out of pieces at the moment. And with that being said, that's it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much to NordVPN for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you again in the next one.